Job's asleep in the back of the car. Arnold opens the door and rouses him. "Your train will soon be in, Professor." Job peers at this enormous, leering man and wonders who the hell he is, remembers and tries to stagger to his feet. With this sudden movement, he's horribly aware of diverse forces warring in his stomach, is eruptingly sick in the nearest litter bin, disapprovingly observed by fellow travellers. "Fancy letting yourself go to that extent," remarks one haughty woman to her spouse. Arnold almost carries him to the platform. The swaying train arrives and Job's shoved in like the corpse relinquished at the hearse, horribly green and yellow in the coffin. A sickening jolt drives him to the window, clawing for air. The big man stands well back as the lurching train gets into motion, juddering, stopping, juddering again. Job flings down the window and screams at Arnold, "I've left me bloody briefcase in me room." Arnold waves and smirks and thinks his thoughts, beams at the ticket collector, a nice young man, long blonde hair and an earring, gets in the car and whistles gaily all the way back to the house. At the ministry, things are looking black. The head of Job's department is displeased. Gregor Bowrer Chapman, known as Bow because he's always barking, loses his temper and rounds on poor old Stuart like a dog that's had its bone pinched. Not totally recovered, despite an intervening night's deep sleep, Job feels his headache throbbing once again. "They led you by the nose," young Gregor shouts after hearing the professor's disastrous report. Only 28, his rapid rise has induced a certain arrogance, reinforced by feelings of inferiority. "What do you say?" With all the weariness of the older man, confronted by an overbearing youngster in a superior position to himself, Job raises his hands and drops them in his lap in an effective gesture of submission. "This won't help your promotion prospects, Prof." Stuart winces at the abbreviation, tries not to look the great fart in the eye, lest Bow's sarcastic handsomeness should rouse the hot red devil inside him, who makes him pass unseasonable, dangerously barbed remarks. "I'm sorry, but I have to say it now. As your reporting officer—" "I know," sighs Stuart, thinks those bastards are to blame. Bowrer bloody Chapman makes a note in his diary. closes it slowly and dramatically, luxuriates in his upholstered chair. Job's sitting on a hard chair with no arms. What happened? Is that a hint of pathos in his voice? Now he's shown he has the upper hand, he'll be magnanimous. Dog licks the fawning dog it's previously bitten. They saw me coming from a long way off, that's what. Stuart hardly bothers to be polite. What are they really up to? Research? It's got to be something bigger than that. Bow shuffles through the papers on his desk. That caper back in 73, was there something to it? Could it be they're really working on a time machine? They're mad enough for anything, Stuart grouses. More to the point, why has the trail gone dead? Such a rush of information at first, now a measly trickle. They probably know we're on to them, Stuart muses airily, abstracted. Then, fuck me, he cries at the astonished Bow. Excuse my French. Don't you see? That could be the answer. What if they've discovered the place is bugged? The same thought has also occurred to me, Bowra Chapman lies. And if that's the case, Prof, you and I have a deal of work to do. Looking at the battle-weary Job, he wonders if the old man's up to it. You cut off now, leave me to have a think, and don't forget, let's keep our standards up. Bowra Chapman's jaw is firmly set. Stick your standards up your arse, you prat, Job mentally comments as he slinks away, glad to be let off lightly for the mow. After Job is gone, Grigor muses on alone. Around him the great building slowly quietens, except for the intermittent jangling of the night guard's keys, the distant hollow banging of a door. The phone rings. He ignores it, knowing who it is, an undesirable acquaintance. Outside, the peak-hour traffic grows to a steady roar, reaches its crescendo, diminishes. Light fades. Switching on the desk lamp, he rises to pace the dusty parquet floor. The contract cleaners are unreliable. His mind a vertiginous, rocky gorge through which the thought flood rushes, a noisy, echoing torrent. Thoughts of Job, of Edith, and of Arthur. What's the project on which the pair are embarked? Really to break the barrier of time? Had they really gone to ancient Egypt, been absorbed into those long-dead people? Nicias, Antonia, Phanes, Hotep, become a living part of the living past. Edith, were the woman to be believed, had lost her present identity, reincarnated. Could it happen backwards? Must reincarnation follow a forward movement? As a Greek colonist born in Heliopolis. How totally absurd, how laughable. Hallucination, That was what it was. Self-delusion, obviously, hysteria. Given the brilliance of their rational minds, how could the reasoning faculty fall so low? Pacing, he pauses before the mirror, gazes at his handsome, sullen face, tanned skin glowing in soft electric light, feeds upon the darkness of his own eyes like the true Narcissus he's become. Fall so low? Have you not fallen lower? He asks his own reflection in the mirror, as though it were a separate self. Did not the tidal waters, emotions bore, sweep you out to strange, exultant seas well beyond the sunken shore of reason? Logic's a dry and barren land, whose hungry natives wish they'd not been born. Grigor recalls the curves of a chiselled form his infatuation fed upon, now gone. So powerful the thrall, he would have done anything to have it for his own, that he might worship daily at the shrine that lascivious eidolon became. How unbearably are all our senses drawn by the mere geometry of shapely form, soft flesh upon the sculpted living bone. No mystery so holy, none so rare as that encased disturbance of the air, moving as the most mellifluous music. Not all the beams of deity can eclipse refulgency of earth's own best and brightest, who, having conquered time and space, might look God in the face and stand his equals. Were Arthur and Edith, their thought echoing his, after precisely this mankind's apotheosis? Grigor examines the papers again, looking for some clue to their hidden aims, his brain aglow with eager possibility. After a fruitless search, he comes to see there's nothing in these files but speculation. It's 10 o'clock. He's exhausted and elated, home to the empty house and empty bed. His excitement calls for more, much more than that. His ecstatic musing has declined into a longing for unthoughtful sex in which to douse the hot glow of the brain. Out there, along the dark and gusty streets, the one true demigod might now be cruising, who will fulfill his yearning. He locks the classified papers in their cabinet, switches off the light and shuts the door, says good night to the porter, emerges into the damp fresh air once again in search of the Holy Grail. A public urinal is the unlikely place he chooses to renew his old new quest. A week later, back at the manor, Arthur and Edith's premature rejoicings are excised by a phone call from the ministry. The deceptively gentle tones of Bowra Chapman, whose exquisite lips have not, alas, yet tasted the holy beverage from the holy cup, but have imbibed a welcome frothy beer from a rough plebeian barrel overturned, floating pacifically across 200 miles of English town and country, murmur in Arthur's ear. He listens carefully, white with apprehension, smiles at Edith, an unsettling sign. Says, "What do you mean? The inspection was incomplete. This is outrageous. I'll ring you back when I can. I'm expecting another call. You'll have to wait." He switches the unwelcome, intrusive machine, most inconvenient of our conveniences, to answer phone, to avoid any further distraction and enable him to vet incoming messages. Thus, a second convenience is required to save the inconvenience of the first. "Trouble," Arthur tells Edith. "Heap big trouble." Arthur is never serious in a crisis. Being serious only makes things worse. The government are determined to take control of our nuclear program. Only so, they say, can public safety be assured. But that will mean the complete end of the project, unless we let them in on all our secrets, which we cannot possibly do. I'd rather abandon everything, give up entirely, finish. Finish? No way. We shall muster support, lobby, seek the assistance of influential friends, find some dodge to circumvent the dead and deadening hand of authority. Bureaucracy will wither all our work. First the theory, then the experiment. If that pathetic crowd of nobodies that calls itself a government takes over here, nothing more can usefully be achieved. They have already ruined this great country by grim affiliation. Even now are grinding down the pieces to make them smaller and widen the devastation. Never mind the overall design. Concentrate on the minuter shards. Subdivide, then rule the disunited kingdom of smaller Britain and faction-riddled Northern Ireland. Ignore the enormous scope of a Shakespeare play and carp instead against a misspelled word, a misplaced comma. Then say you know better and build a plotless, undramatic drama from proper words and very proper commas in such a perfect pattern, propriety becomes the be and end all. Vision fades to a feeble neon flickering in the gloom. If we allow them to usurp our work, they'll mummify us, living in red tape and proliferating regulations, endless discussions, reaching no conclusion, as is the way with any organization. Let's not pretend and call it government when the whole country has become a prison. Everything compacted, compartmented, locked away in unconnected cells. Edith takes a deep breath, stamps her foot. Damn and double damn. And damn again, echoes Arthur, smiling. I must say, you are showing great restraint in the face of unparalleled provocation. This is no time for levity, my dear. No, Edith. Arthur makes a prayerful attitude, which she ignores. Leafing through their personal telephone directory, she points to a number carefully ringed in red. Now he could be very handy in a punch-up. Ex-government minister, titled, in the know, finger in every lucrative pie in the city. I think I'll give his charming wife a bell. He was a politician, Edith, one of your class of infamous nobodies. Shall we fight filth with filth by piling sewage high upon the noisome refuse heap of Britain? She looks at him with some annoyance. Arthur, this is too serious for childish levity, which, with you, is starting to become something of a silly affectation. He hangs his head, says, sorry, glances at her with the curling lip of one about to cry. I'll try to be much better in the future. She laughs and throws a cushion at his head. You naughty boy, can do the rounds of your famous scientific friends. Let's go. She smacks him on his shapely, tight behind.